This year is going to be 25 years since the BFI IMAX opened its doors, and this is the pamphlet that was sent out to all members back at that time. This came through the door just before the IMAX was built. It's a special place, and to commemorate this 25 years of being in operation, they are going to have plenty of 1570 screenings, special screenings later this year, so worth keeping an eye on their website to see what's coming. But I finally, this past Monday, got to see Dune Part 2 in 1570 IMAX film. Now, I'll go into some detail on this later. It's not exactly what I would call a genuine IMAX, but it's great to see something on film, the efforts they've gone to. And I've been getting some information on the channel through the comments since my last video as to how much these 1570 prints actually cost. And apparently the Oppenheimer prints, which they are the longest ever, that was around 60,000 US dollars. So I would imagine Dune Part 2 is at least 50,000 US dollars. So you've got to support these things, or at least I feel I've got to support these things when they come about. As a film, I don't think either of the Dune films, or even the 1984 David Lynch Dune film, I don't think any of them are the best films ever made. I didn't particularly like Dune a couple of years ago when it first came out, the Denis Villeneuve film. The second part, by the time this has come around, I've rather got into it because I rewatched Dune on the 4K disc a couple of months ago, enjoyed it a whole lot more. I was prepared for all the little foibles with the imagery on the 4K disc, and I was there ready to adjust the HDR invisibly while it was running on the screen. It seemed to work much better. And so to get in to see Dune Part 2 on that massive screen at the BFI IMAX made it all the more special, and I can appreciate these films now for what they are on a huge screen, which is how they should be seen. As I said, I don't think it's one of the best films ever made, but I've really got into the characters, and that's a good sign of a good film. The action is, well, it's exquisite at times, isn't it? But the sound, well, it's going to be interesting to see how well the 4K disc compares in here, but I don't think my home THX Ultra sound system is going to quite come up to what we heard at the BFI IMAX. But I did shoot a video on the day. I've got a representation of the 1570 projector running, which I shot during Tenet and Oppenheimer. So it's just to give us a flavour of what happens. But I did go in last week when Michael Ford was on duty to get some shots of the film on the platter. So hopefully this will give you a good representation of what it was like to be at the BFI IMAX to see Dune Part 2 in 1570 IMAX film. So here is the video from my latest visit to the Glass Palace, and I'll come back at the end of this to fill in a few details I've undoubtedly missed. First of all, another look around this glorious picture palace before we enter the auditorium. And before I forget, this was just a few days before the new Mad Max saga, the spin-off Furiosa, was to open, so they had advertising hoardings and things for this absolutely everywhere. There were several signs dotted around warning of flashing lights within Dune Part 2, but I wasn't aware of anything during its 166-minute running time. I was aware of the shifting aspect ratio though, which had a few scenes about 2.20 to 1, about an hour possibly of 1.43 to 1, but mainly what looked to me about 178 to 1, but more likely was 190 to 1. Look at the size of that screen. That sums it up. It may not be widescreen cinema of the past, but I think it is modern cinema that manages to evoke the same sense of occasion from a time when going to the cinema was an event and something to be remembered. I tend to sit in that wonderful auditorium awaiting the show to start with anticipation. This is cinema at its best, and it reminds me why I've enjoyed films and cinema so much throughout my life. Just coming out of the BFI IMAX, having seen Dune Part 2 finally. It's impressive. It's not what I would call the genuine IMAX article, and anyone who came to see Oppenheimer, Tenet, Dunkirk, even Interstellar, which I think is the most impressive cinema film you can see in genuine IMAX. But of the Dunkirk and Tenet and Oppenheimers, which are probably the ultimate in image quality, particularly Tenet and Dunkirk, this doesn't really come close, but when it goes 1:4:3 to 1, sometimes the image quality does improve quite significantly. I don't know exactly why that was. I expect someone in the comments will tell us. But it is impressive to look at and see on this giant 85-foot wide by about 60-foot high screen. And I know there's only a few screenings left scheduled at the moment, but I don't think we're going to be able to compare a 4K disc to this. And it had a very filmic look to it. The film grain was entirely natural because that was what it was, because we were looking at a film print, and it made a 4K video look like an artistic film print, and you cannot ask for any more than that. So I think the next one they've got scheduled for here is going to be entirely video projected, but it looks like it's going to be impressive. The trailer looked rather fantastic. I believe Tiana was on duty today at the IMAX GT projector, and what a great job she did up there. Perfect presentation yet again at the BFI IMAX. After I'd finished recording my immediate reaction to seeing Dune Part 2, I met Hardik, who is another IMAX 1570 enthusiast, and this is what Hardik had to say about his experience at the BFI IMAX.
It's the best IMAX experience ever. It's like if you get lucky, go watch it at BFI, and if not, I guess you're bad luck, man. So if you ever get to be in London, please do visit BFI IMAX. It's going to be the best experience you're going to ever have watching a movie on 70mm IMAX. It's rare. It's going to be an amazing experience, and yes, you're going to be the one of those people who can say that I got to watch movie on a real 70mm IMAX. It's a good thing to brag about, you know.
And you saw Tenet earlier
Yeah,
this
I
year
did see
here.
Tenet earlier. That was my first time experience watching an IMAX movie on 70mm. And yeah, all hail Christopher Nolan, Sir Christopher Nolan right now, because he's gonna be getting knighted. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I'm still gonna be waiting for the re-release of Interstellar.
10th anniversary
Yeah, the
coming
10th
up.
anniversary, yes. If I ever get the chance, I'm gonna watch that movie here again. I just hope I get the tickets, fingers crossed.
Well, I couldn't have put that better than Hardik did. What an experience again, seeing a film, a very good film, at the BFI IMAX. So, if that's the end of the video, bye-bye for now. Actually, it's not quite the end of the video, because there's one thing I failed to mention, and having thought about it a little, it's probably two things. Now, why is it worthwhile doing a blow-up from a digital 4K video master onto 70mm film and 1570 IMAX film? Well, the same reasons it was worth doing with 35mm when the original 35mm negatives were used to strike blow-ups to 70mm release prints, and I saw quite a few of these back in the day, and the image quality was always better than any 35mm you could see. It was a bigger film format going through the projector. You just got better imagery with actually brighter light going through that imagery onto the screen. So it's something that's been done for years, and for me, I've grown up, and throughout my life I've got used to looking at film. It's how I like to see a film, or a movie in this case. It's just how I prefer to look at it, and it just looks so much more natural to me. And the one main reason why that is that film projectors have a mechanical shutter in them, and it seems to generate this more natural movement of anything across the screen. But there's one other thing that's largely my own theory as to why we get this natural looking imagery on film, and that is because you've got the film running between the light source and the lens, diffusing the light, and it just creates this lovely sort of image that you can look at. No need for sunglasses like you need sometimes with digital video projection. Just gives you a beautiful image across, and you can see the sparkle of the film grain if you look for it. And I have to say, in this print of Dune, quite often you had to look for it, and sometimes you couldn't actually see it. It's that fine grain. It is there, but it's something different about film. When you see film regularly projected, you don't get this coarse grain look very often that we tend to get in video. And as I keep pointing out in my reviews of 4K discs, and we have had it confirmed in the makings of on several 4K discs, that it's the transfer process that's causing it. It's scanning the film that's picking up the edges of every bit of film grain on there. So to summarise this recent trip to the BFI IMAX to see Dune Part 2, for us, for my wife and I, it was a cinematic event. We've had a few of these lately thanks to the BFI IMAX, but don't forget there's a Ronson Theatre in the Science Museum, which is a genuine IMAX, and there's also the Manchester Printworks. They are the three in Britain at the moment, but it's looking good that the Bradford IMAX is going to reopen and reinstall the 1570 projection. So we'll have 4 options in Britain. We're not doing badly. Out of the around 30 in the world, we can have 4 of them here. Well, the only other thing I think I ought to mention is that we've got a film event coming up. It's going to be more of a television event really, and a film collection sort of commemoration. It's going to be at the Courtyard Cinema in Hereford, and it's on the 1st of June, so that's Saturday week as I record this, 1st of June 2024. It's going to be about film collectors and how it is that film collectors end up with what turn out to be the sole surviving copies of anything in the world in their collections. And this has happened quite often in the world, but because we're film collectors, and we had the British Film Collectors Convention, which is going to return next year, I hope, we've set up Film is Fabulous. Now, John Franklin is the man who's been volunteered to run this. It was actually his idea in the first place, and he's ended up having great support from the De Montfort University in Leicester. So we've got this new facility in there where we've got a pilot study at the moment where we're trying to help families of deceased collectors so we can go through their film collections work out the best ways of disposing of them correctly so nothing ends up in the landfill. It's a long, convoluted process. It's going to be a 6-month process. I think we've got 4.5 months left on it. But next weekend, not this coming weekend, Saturday 1st of June 2024, we've got an event at Hereford where we're going to show 4 television items that we found that were believed completely missing, no surviving copies. And I won't tell you how many other missing television episodes we found so far, but it's quite a lot. I can't announce anything today of what might be announced on the day of other things we found, but it's beginning to look quite exciting, so I hope it all comes to fruition. There are tickets on sale. I'll leave a link in the description below to the Hereford Courtyard website, and if you're interested in coming along to this and watching missing television episodes, we got a Sykes, a Basil Brush, Boom Boom, a Mogul, which was a successful drama series back in the, was it the 60s? Yeah, I think this one was 65, just after Thunderball. I might be wrong on that. And a missing episode of the Tom Jones Show, which I have seen. It's not unusual to be a Tom Jones fan, but I've turned into one of those and I'm looking forward to seeing that on the big screen. I've been volunteered to be in the panel discussion discussing how it is that film collectors have played such an important role in actually saving what would have been lost completely if the studios had have got their ways, and television studios as well. And so just an interesting aside, anyone who's ever seen Gone with the Wind, I'm told, and it's apparently true, the big fire sequence in that where the city is burning, that was all the nitrate prints in Hollywood being taken out to the set and set on fire. So that was how much respect film got back in those days. So thank goodness many film collectors around the world have saved some of these treasures. Until the next video, bye bye for now.